Welcome back, my beautiful people. Today I'm with Efrat, and we're going to do something different. She is going to be interviewing me today.
What is the most biggest mistake beginner hosts make in the short-term rental business, and how can they avoid it?
The first one is to think that they can do everything. I've always said that you can't wear all hats. Do and work on what you're good at and hire the rest. The second, probably most common mistake that brand new hosts make is on pricing. They not using a dynamic pricing software and thinking that they could put one single price for a period of time is a big mistake.
So, from your experience, what matter most to get more bookings? Pricing, photos, or the host reputation?
I think today's traveler is different than in years past, right? If you want to stay occupied and be competitive, then pricing is going to be hugely important. Today, travelers are expecting to pay less and get more. But here's the caveat there, and you're seeing it in the airline industry. Premium services or premium amenities are in high demand, but people don't want to really pay for them. So make sure that your pricing based on your property is competitive by analyzing and using a pricing software. Most people don't want to use a pricing software, which I don't understand why, but you should definitely take the data from a pricing software so that you can provide a competitive price, because most people are shopping based on price. And again, they want more for their dollar.
What strategies do you recommend to maximize occupancy during the low seasons?
In slow season, like now, we're in the slow season again. And I may sound repetitive, but it's extremely important. Is make sure you understand how to properly price your property. And the next one is marketing. During slow season, you really have to double down on your marketing. Make sure you're providing promotions. Make sure that you're constantly in front of mind of a traveler if they're going to travel in the slow season.
How has the guest profile changed in these recent years? What do travelers accept today from short-term rentals?
The profile of today's traveler is different than years past. I kind of already mentioned the fact that today's traveler, they want premium stuff, but they don't want to pay for premium stuff. Right? In addition to that, there's a couple of things you always have to remember. In the short-term rental industry, the traveler that books a short-term rental is still small in comparison to booking a hotel. So the expectation of that traveler has a resort or hotel style mentality when they book a short-term rental. And that's important for you to understand, because they're going to expect certain things like 24 access to you. You'll get phone calls from a guest at 2 or 3 in the morning, and they expect you to answer, right? So those are the two key points for you to always keep in the back of your mind. And this is why communication via email or text messages is hugely important, right? You want to set up those expectations early, so that even before they get to your property, so they understand that they're not booking a hotel, that they actually booked a short-term rental, and they're two separate entities.
What role does technology play in property management?
The role of technology today is insane. I can't express how important it is to have a very good PMS system, good pricing software. The industry has changed. When I started, I did everything on an Excel spreadsheet. There's no way I can manage the amount of properties I manage today on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not going to happen. And even when I had it, I can tell you that it was tedious. We made lots of mistakes because there's a lot of human error involved when you're doing that kind of tedious work. So I can't emphasize how important you have to have. And again, it doesn't matter if you have one property or 1,000 properties, you have to have a solid PMS system, a good pricing software. There's other things in there like a noise detector, smart locks. Technology plays a huge, just simply put, technology plays a huge role in the short-term rental industry, and you can't stand out, you can't grow, or it becomes very difficult to grow without it.
How do you handle negative reviews so they don't damage a property reputation?
Negative reviews are part of the industry. The short-term rental industry is highly dependent on reviews. But here's one of the things that I've learned throughout the years. It's not a death sentence if you get a bad review. Here's what you need to understand. If you're in this game long enough, you will get negative reviews because you can't please everyone and you shouldn't please everyone. You should, for example, every property, in my opinion, has a unique avatar, meaning a unique customer that property is best suited for. So I'm going to give you an example, right? If you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, swimming pool, and its design, or for example, if it's in Orlando, it's going to cater more to families. So a single occupant, if they book that property, they may not like a lot of stuff you added to that because you added stuff for families, and vice versa. If you have a small property that you're catering it to a specific demographic, if you get the opposite demographic there, they're not going to like it because you're not catering to it. It's not your ideal avatar. So if you get that bad review, it's not a death sentence, but here's what you need to do. Number one, if it's false or it has or has inaccurate information, try to get it removed. And if you can't get it removed, then you have to write a rebuttal to that review. For example, somebody says they found stained sheets, and in fact there were stained sheets. Admit to it. Say, we apologize. Our cleaning staff missed it, but we have since corrected that problem. Another big one is on AC. You're going to get this a lot, especially if you're in South Florida. The AC is going to go out at some point, right? Even if you do proper maintenance to your AC, at some point it may go out, and it may go out at the wrong time. You may have guests there. That guest may write a negative review because of the AC. No problem. You're going to write, "Hey, we received that your request. We responded as quickly as we possibly could, and it has since been fixed." Right? Because believe it or not, there's another big thing is that most people read only the top 3 or top 4 reviews, and in platforms like Airbnb, they only show I think it's 4 or 5 reviews at a time, and no one digs deeper. So most likely that bad review is not even going to be listed on those 4, and people don't actually dig deeper to check them out. So don't stress if you get a bad review. Bad reviews they're going to come if you're in the industry long enough.
How important is location compared to service quality and guest experience?
That's an interesting question, and location obviously is important, but I don't want you to get confused whether if you're at the right location, you don't have to provide the right amenities. If you're in a bad location, you should provide better amenities. No, I think you should provide excellent service regardless of where you're at, right? You provide the best amenities regardless of where you are located. Location does play a role, but not as big as many people think. I'm going to give you a couple of examples on that, and I'm going to use South Florida as an example. A lot of people think they need to have a property on the beach, or they need to have a property on a lake. They need to have a property right next to Disney, right? In order to be successful. And that, my friends, is not true, and it's probably even further from the truth than many people think. And here's why. So, for example, we have properties in Broward County that are not near the beach. We have properties that are way, way west. But most people coming to South Florida don't really care about that. And here's why. If you're coming from the Midwest, if you're coming from the Northeast, a 15, 20-minute drive to the beach, it's nothing for you, right? So even if you have a property in, let's say, Davie, and you're 10 minutes to the beach or 15, 20 minutes to the beach, doesn't matter. You can still advertise that you're in South Florida, and you can still advertise the beach, right? So it doesn't matter. Where it does matter is in terms of your entry point and in terms of your profitability. Right. I have shied away from very expensive properties on the beach because they're super expensive. Makes it difficult to become profitable. I rather buy a middle range property, right? So let's say the medium pricing of a particular area is 300,000. That's what I'm buying. I'm not buying a $1 million house when I can buy a $300,000 house and be more profitable. This is a subject for another video, but understand that location is important, but not as important as many people think.
If an investor wants to get into this business, give me 3 tips to him.
If an investor wants to get into this industry, there's 3 things that you have to have. Number one, you have to work with a realtor that specializes in short-term rentals. You know, there's there's a lot of people that say that, oh, I specialize in short-term rentals, but they've never managed a short-term rental. They probably have only sold 2 or 3 short-term rentals at the most. So do your research as to who you're working with, because who you work with matters. Secondly is, unless you own a management company yourself, hire that out. You got to get a professional management company to help you out with that. And then secondly, as I mentioned in the prior question, when you buy a property, you have to look at it from 2 points of view. Number one, is that property going to be profitable as a long-term rental? Because if it's profitable as a long-term rental, it will be profitable as a short-term rental. So understand that you first have to look at it as a long-term rental. And then the last thing I'll mention, I'll throw in an extra one in there, is your price point, right? Or the purchase of the property. When I invest in a property, I have to buy it with equity. Don't ever buy a property that doesn't have equity, because you're starting off bad. Something major happens, you have 0 equity, you're in trouble. So make sure when you buy the property and make sure it has equity. Otherwise, don't buy it.
Why should a host hire a company to manage his property instead of handling it themselves?
As I mentioned, here's why you should hire a property management company, and specifically one that handles short-term rentals. Like, for example, for us, we specialize in short-term rentals. We don't do anything else. We just do short-term rentals. And the reason why you want that is because the industry is unique. It's different. It's not the same. Just like a long-term rental is not the same as a short-term rental. In fact, a short-term rental, I classify short-term rental management as more of hospitality management. There's the major difference. So, and most people don't understand that, and that's the problem.
How do you see the future of this business over the next 5 years?
That's a great question. In the short term, let's say from now in the next 3 to 4 years, I don't think much is going to change. Although, if you ask me right now, I'm not buying residential properties unless I'm getting a phenomenal deal, right? And the reason being is because the residential market is still oversaturated in the short-term rental industry. And plus, depending on where you're at, for example, if you are in Spain, I've talked about this endlessly on my channel. If you are in Spain, specifically Barcelona, Madrid, some of the traditional tourist spots, you're in trouble. There's a big pushback against short-term rentals. So be careful what you buy. Uh, but the future of short-term rentals are, and even today, and it's what I'm doing in my vineyard, is buying a property that's unique. You're providing a unique experience, and it doesn't matter what property you get. You have to be experience focused. You have to provide something to that guest that they normally wouldn't get in, let's say, a hotel or a short-term rental that's being managed by someone that's not as experienced in the industry. That's where I see this industry going. I think it's still solid. I think it's still strong, but the days of putting anything on Airbnb or Booking or Verbal and expecting that to be profitable are gone.
Thank you so much, Fernando, to answering all these questions. And if you have a comment, just follow us. And thank you for watching and follow for more.